Today we're going to create a model using parametric equations. Parametric equations are formulas that will create dimensions for us. It's actually a very quick and easy way to enlarge things, and we are actually going to double the size of the model that we create by changing one dimension. You'll understand as we go. So let's go ahead and create a new IPT. I'm going to go to my origin, and I'm going to create a sketch on the XY plane. Create new sketch, and I'm going to move this over a little, and I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm not going to put any dimensions in for anything yet. Now I'm going to go up to my dimension tool, and I'm going to dimension the height to 0.25. So I'm going to put 0.25 in for my height. I am now going to create the length of this object, or this drawing I should say, and for my length I'm actually going to use my original dimension over here to create an equation that's going to make this line a specific length. So right now my length is 1.289 and etc., and yours is going to be something different because we drew this freehand. But notice that it says edit dimension D1. This is my dimension that is labeled dimension 1 or D1. This dimension is D0. It's the first dimension that we ever created. So this is actually going to be the dimension that everything is going to be based upon. So I'm going to click on this dimension and it says D0. If I were to leave this at D0 and hit check, I'm going to go ahead and do this, it's going to make it the same exact length as this line is here because it's copying D0 basically. So I don't want that to happen. I want this thing to be longer. So I'm going to go back into this dimension, and instead of D0, I'm going to say D0 times 5. And that's automatically going to make it 1.25 inches long because it's going to multiply D0 times 5. And so now we have that length. So I'm going to go to Finish Sketch, and I'm going to go to Isometric View, and I'm going to extrude this. Now it's asking me how long I want this to go. I'm not going to type a physical dimension length in here. I'm going to use a parametric equation for it. I could base it off of 0.25, or I could base it off of my D1 dimension, which is 1.25. That's actually exactly what I'm going to do. D1 is 1.25, so I'm going to click it, and D1 automatically goes in there. But I'm actually going to make this 1.5 times what this dimension is. So I'm going to do D1 times 1.5, and it's going to make it 1.5 times this length right here. So now if I right click on the screen and go to measure, I'm going to measure this line right here. It is 1.875 long, so it's 1.5 times 1.25. So we've used parametric equations so far to create this entire object. Now I'm going to edit this thing. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a sketch on the top. And I'm going to grab my circle tool, and I'm going to make sure that I lock onto the middle of my object by getting a dotted line. And I'm going to make the size of this circle D0. So now I have a 0.25 dimension circle. And I'm going to dimension, and I'm going to go in and dimension from the center to the edge here, and this is 0.938 or 0.9375. To ensure that this thing is actually in the middle, what I'm going to do is dimension this line right here, which is 1.875, and it says that I can't dimension because it'll over-constrain the sketch, but that's okay. I'm going to accept a driven dimension. So it's basically a reference. So I'm going to go back to this dimension here, which is dimension 5. It's the 5th dimension that I've created so far. And I'm going to come over and click this dimension, which is dimension 6. And I'm going to divide it by 2 because I want it to be right in the middle or centered along here. So I'm going to hit check. And nothing really changed because I made sure that I had a dotted line. So it's still not 0.9375, but I wanted to ensure that that was the case. Now I'm going to dimension from here to the edge, and this dimension I want to make 0.25 times 1.5. I want it to be 1.5 times the original dimension. But I'm not going to type in 0.25. I'm going to type in d0 times 1.5, and now it's 0.375, or 1.5 times 0.25. Now I'm going to grab lines, and I'm going to lock a line on right here to the line, and right here, the middle. Oh, I missed the middle of the circle, so I'm going to start over really quick. I want to make sure I snap onto that circle there, to the line, and I'm going to trim this piece right here. And I'm going to go to Finish Sketch. I'm going to cut a hole in it that's this size. Extrude this shape, and I'm going to go D0, and I'm going to cut and go this direction. So I'm cutting a hole in my object. I'm going to hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is create a plane, and I want a plane that cuts right down the middle of this object. Now none of my planes actually do this. Even this one doesn't, because we didn't extrude it symmetrically. But I want to show you how this can be done. None of these planes are going to work for me. So I'm going to come up and click Plane. Actually, I want to make sure that I don't have anything selected, so I'm going to click the white first to make sure nothing's selected. I'm going to create a feature on top here, but I want to know what that last dimension was, because I want that 0.375. So I'm going to go back into my extrusion 2. I'm going to turn the visibility on for the sketch that I made. This is 0.375, my 0.375 dimension. I'm going to double click it, and this is dimension 7. Okay, so dimension 7 is actually what I want to use again. So I'm going to remember that D7 is this dimension right here. What I want is a plane that comes in from this edge the same exact distance as this circle is. So I'm going to come up to my plane, and I'm going to go to Offset from Plane, and I'm going to click this corner of my cube, and I'm going to click this space right here. And what I'm going to do is click this dimension right here, but I want it to go in the negative direction. So I'm going to do negative D7. So now it's going negative 0.375, which is exactly what I want. I'm going to hit check. And now I'm going to make a sketch on this plane right here. So I'm going to project the geometry of the top line here. And I'm going to hit F7 so I can see through this object. There's my top line. I'm going to grab my line tool, and I'm going to lock on to the top line here. And I'm going to come up, and for this dimension, I want it to go up the same as D1. I want it to go 1.5. So I'm going to do D1, enter. But actually, that is a little bit too high. That's actually double what I want it to be. So I'm going to go back to my dimension tool, click on this dimension, and I'm going to divide this dimension by 2. And that's perfect. 0.625 is exactly what I want. Then I'm going to go back to my line tool, click on here in the line, and I'm going to come out, and I want this thing to go out 1 inch exactly. So there's a lot of different ways that I can do this, but I'm going to do it by using a function, because I want all these to be parametric equations. So I'm going to do D0 times 4. Because my original dimension, D0, was 0.25, so I'm just going to do it times 4. And so now I've got my line coming out to this area. Now I'm going to right click and cancel, and I'm going to go to Finish Sketch. Now I'm going to make a sketch on the top plane. I'm going to go back to isometric view, and I'm going to project the geometry of the tip of this line right here. Or I could just click the line. Either way. So now I have a point on my object. I'm going to grab my circle, come up and lock onto that point that I just created, and I'm going to make this also 0.25. But I don't want to type 0.25. I'm going to put D0. So it's just going to be D0 again. Now I'm going to lock on to this point right here, the edge of my circle, and I'm going to make this also D0. And I'm going to go to trim, and I'm going to trim this part of the line, this part of the line, and leave that little half moon kind of shape there. Now I'm going to hit finish sketch, zoom out a little, and I'm going to sweep this. I'm going to sweep this little half moon shape along the path that I created up here, and that's just what I want. Hit OK. And I'm going to right click my old sketch here and turn the visibility off. I'm also going to turn the visibility off of my work plane. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fillet these corners here. So I'm going to go up to fillet, and I want these to be filleted at 0.5. So there's a lot of ways that we can do this. We're going to use a function once again. So I'm going to do D0 times 2. And I'm going to click this edge, and I'm going to click this edge. I'm going to hit OK. So now we've created a parametric model here. So let's go ahead and save this. Hopefully you've been saving as you've been going along, but I'm going to save this at this point. Go to File, Save As, and I'm going to name this Parametric Model. Okay, so this right now, if I measure this line right here, for example, it's 1.875. This is the magic of parametric equations. I'm going to show you how we can double the size of this object very quickly. I'm going to go to my extrusion 1, go to this sketch. So this is my original sketch that I created. I am going to go back to my 0.25, which is dimension 0, and I'm going to change this to 0.5. Notice that this has doubled in size, this has also doubled in size, and when I hit finish sketch, the entire model is going to jump to double the size that it used to be. So now the model is double the size. When I go to measure and I click this line, it's now 3.75, which is double what it used to be. If I go back into sketch 1 again, and let's say that I change dimension 0 to 0.125, which is half what it used to be, and hit check, now everything has gone down to half the size it used to be. Finish the sketch, and now we've got a puny little parametric model. However, look at this guy right here. It's changed positions because we never established where it was supposed to be. So I'm going to go ahead and establish where it's supposed to be, but I want to go back in time first to when this thing used to be large, and notice that this thing has moved here as well. So we've noticed that there has been a problem with our parametric model. This position has not been set yet. I'm actually going to go back to what it originally was. Now it's in the right position. So I'm going to go to my sweep and hit the plus sign, and the sketch that I want to change is actually where this line is in relation to our plane. So I'm going to double click sketch 3, which is where this line was originally drawn, and I'm going to dimension from this point to here, and I want this to be 0.5. So what we can do to make this 0.5, this is 1 inch, that's dimension 12. We can go ahead and use it, divide by 2, and now it's 0.5. Finish the sketch. Our object has moved. Now this thing is going to stay in position no matter what we change. So now if I go back to, let's go ahead and save this first. Save. Now I'm going to go back to sketch 1, edit this number right here. So we're going to make it double again, 0.5. Finish the sketch. And now our object, as this has stayed where it needs to be. So you want to make sure that you assign a dimension. Every dimension after the first one should be a parametric equation or a function in order for this thing to work properly. So we've doubled the size of this object. I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Save As, Parametric Model. I'm going to name this Parametric Model Doubled. Go ahead and create 2 title blocks, one for each of these. Top, front, side views should be dimensioned, isometric should be shaded, and every dimension should be present that is required, following the rules of dimensioning.